Right, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm going to make this a really quick and easy to follow tutorial on how to pollinate pinguiculas. I've got 3 pings in flower at the moment. So I've got my 2 weezers. 2 of my weezers are currently flowering. This one's grown insane. It looks like a giant cabbage. Or if you've seen the cabbage coral, I think it reminds me of that. It's really cool. And then I've got my Aphrodite, which is flowering at the moment as well. This one's got 2 flowers on, and a lot of you can see the old flowers that have died down, and it's got a couple of leaves that have died off on there. So I do need to tidy this one up, but it's really starting to look good, so I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to be crossing Aphrodite and Weezer. I'm not necessarily crossing them to produce seed personally, but a few of you have asked if I could do a tutorial on how to, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to make it nice, easy and quick. So I'll turn the camera around, focus it really nice and close, and show you exactly how I do it. I use personally a safety pin to pollinate them. I don't know if that sounds a bit weird, but just one of these, I use one of those. You'll understand as I'm doing it. I don't use paintbrushes. I know a lot of people use paintbrushes to pollinate plants, but because they're so intricate and small, there's such a small amount of pollen, I just use the end of a pin just to scrape it out, and then yeah, I'll show you guys. So I will turn the camera around right now and we'll get on with it. Right, so I've just tried to focus on a single flower, and then we've got, so these 2 petals up here are the upper petals, and then the 3 lower ones are called the lower petals. What you can do to make this process a lot easier to kind of expose the anthers and the stigma is to actually pull the flower apart. So if you hold the top, excuse my nail varnish, I don't even know why I've left it on, but you can just pull the bottom 3 leaves off, just like this. Just pull it down, and it doesn't damage the actual in the organ part of the flower. It just exposes the parts that we are going to be able to use. Okay, so I'm hoping this really shows up. So we've got the outside section. So that little tiny thing right there, the top of it is the stigma, and underneath it are the anthers, which is where the pollen is. So we're going to be trying to scrape under that little lip to get the pollen out. But I'm going to change camera angle because this is not working. Right, so I'm just going to get the needle directly under this little thing here. And you can see just under there. That's where the pollen is, the little yellow bits. So this one no pollen's coming off, so I think this flower is a bit too old. So you want to get a flower pretty early on. I think this one's too young. Right, so we've got the weezer flower here. There's a really, there's a point in which the flowers are too old, so the pollen won't really be viable. And then there's also a point in which the flower is too young, so the pollen hasn't yet been produced. So you've really got to get it at the right time. So I'd leave it a day or 2 after it's opened, and then try to harvest some of the pollen. There we go, you can see it coming now. There we go. Right, now you can see on the needle there is a lot of pollen right on the end, and that is exactly what we want. So now that we've harvested that, I'm going to bring over the Aphrodite flowers that didn't have any pollen yet because they wasn't ready, and then I'm just going to wipe the pollen on the stigma, which is this front part. So behind it is where the anthers are, and then the front section of it is the stigma, so that's where that's where you want the pollen to go. So that is literally all I've been doing, and so far it's worked every single time. And then you'll be able to tell really quickly within a few days if it's worked, because the flower usually drops off relatively quickly once it's been fertilized, and then just behind the flower really starts to swell up. You see that bulbous part there? That will really start to swell up, and that's how you'll know if it's pollinated properly. Right, so I'm going to try it again just one more time on this Weezer flower. So pulling the lower petals directly off just to get them out of the way. You don't have to do it, it's just a bit, it just makes it a bit easier, it opens it up. And then scraping under this section here. Yeah, we've got a lot of pollen there. See how easy that is to actually take out using a needle, and it really grips onto the needle, which is why I like to use a needle. I just think that would be a lot harder to do with a paintbrush. And then I'm just going to cross it with itself just for the purpose. Oh, that flower, actually, that flower looks a little bit old. You see the stigma has kind of turned a bit brown, so I'm not going to use that flower. I'm going to cross this onto the other Weezer. So here, if it'll focus, we've got the stigma right there. There's a lot of pollen on this. That was a good one. So it's really, sometimes there's a lot of pollen, sometimes there's not so much pollen. So you've just got to try it many times, because a lot of the flowers don't have, you don't get it in the right time, and there's not enough pollen, or it's too old and the pollen's kind of no longer usable. Right, so that was just a really quick look at how I personally pollinate them. I'm not saying this is the exact best way of doing it, however, I've really not looked into it. But that's just what I use, and it works for me. So hopefully that was an easy tutorial to follow. I did a few little clips, and I think some of them should be fine. But I'm not gonna make this video long. I'm gonna keep it nice and short. As it's a tutorial video, I'm just going to keep tutorial videos short, and then my personal collection videos, they'll be the longer videos. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If that was useful, please leave a like. Let me know down in the description, no, in the comments, how you pollinate your pings, and how much success you've had with crossing. Yeah, so I'll leave it there. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I'll see you guys in my next video.